Ordeal work is the conscious and careful use of challenge and, in many cases, pain to open oneself up to the gods and the powers, to make offerings, to engage spiritually. It's something that I really think you have to be wired for from the beginning. It works for some people, and it's exactly what some of us need, and it really is not what other people need. It's a tool. It's a very useful tool, but like any other tool, it's something that not everyone can or should use.
You identify as an ordeal master. Could you explain to me what that means?
An ordeal master is someone who doesn't just undergo his or her own ordeals, but who has the experience and the training to facilitate ordeals for others. Ordeal is about engaging with fear and engaging with conflict, be it inner or outer, in a way that helps you find your own strength and your own courage. It is about going to a place that strips away all artifice, all falsehood, all facade, so that you have to engage with the most painful truths of your soul. And hopefully you come out the better for it. Not all ordeals need to involve pain, but pain does tend to cut to the truth of the matter in a way that nothing else can. Can't lie to pain. The immense physicality of pain. And pain is something that engages both not only physically, but it's a deeply emotional experience. And it cuts through our bullshit in a way that nothing else can. I mean, hey, I wish that ordeal could involve sitting in front of a nice fire with a glass of fantastic wine and a 4-star meal, but that's just not the way it happens. It's not about the pain. People get so obsessed about the actual act. Ordeal is not about pain. Ordeal is about crossing a threshold. It's about getting to a goal. Pain just happens to be the horse you ride sometimes. Ordeal is about getting to a specific place with yourself and with your gods. You know, in my youth, up until I was 22, 23, I was a professional ballet dancer. So I learned to engage with pain in a productive manner from the time I was very, very young, because dancers start their training young. I suspect that plays a role in why I responded so well to ordeal. Pain's a tool. In and of itself, it is irrelevant. It's all about the goal. That's a very Odinic way of looking at things. And that's one thing about ordeal. We push boundaries. Ordeal masters, ordeal dancers push boundaries. They push boundaries in themselves. And that process seems to push boundaries in others, tangentially. Ordeal is about pushing your boundaries so that you don't have any false walls between yourself and your holy powers. And it's about really looking at these cultural constructs, like gender, like homophobia, like, I don't know, proper gender roles. Gender seems to be a consistent focus in our community because we're obsessed with it. It causes you to redefine yourself. It's about finding an inner authenticity. And for some of us, we do that by ordeal. Ordeal's frightening. But it teaches you how to transcend your self-imposed limits. We are limited by our humanity, but we should not be limited by our minds. We should not be limited by our hearts. We should not be limited by fear of social censure. Ordeal teaches you to surmount your self-imposed limits. And it's the one thing that I have found for me personally that hits deeply into the core, not only of my physical experience, because as an ex-dancer, I'm a very kinetic learner, but it hits deeply to the core of my emotional and psychic experience too. It just cuts through it all. There's no way to play mental games with yourself, or to put up these pretty facades, or to mouth platitudes when you're hanging from hooks screaming for Odin.
Is Ordeal dangerous?
Oh, hell yeah. Engaged spirituality is dangerous. There's a reason why the ancients so often twinned the sacred and the terrifying. Anything truly sacred is dangerous. But there are two things that are important about Ordeal. One is consent. Ordeals are not forced on people by other people. Those who are Ordeal practitioners, or Ordeal dancers, as some of us like to call it, of their own volition, inspired by their own devotion to their gods, come to Ordeal masters and request ordeals. Free consent. And your Ordeal masters have a lot of training. We don't just do this willy-nilly. We're trained in the necessary techniques. For me, I do cuttings, I do brandings, needlework, psychological Ordeal. I have a psychology background. I was trained in the physical techniques by 2 other Ordeal masters. We also have extensive training in universal precautions in dealing with bloodborne pathogens. Usually, at least one person there will have some medical training. It's dangerous, but it's a controlled danger. The real danger, I think, comes from what Ordeal can evoke inside a person, because it really brings you face to face with your own weaknesses, the limits of your courage. It brings you face to face with your own internal vulnerabilities and your inner demons. But sometimes for those who are called to Ordeal, this is the only way to get to those things. For some, it takes you to a place of immense vulnerability before your gods. And it opens you up on so deep a level. It's the only way that you could let them in that far. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It is a type of communion in those cases with the holy. I've often had people ask me, or just assume, oh, well, you're a masochist, or you're a sexual pervert. And I'm like, well, no and no. I don't like pain. But I've learned to engage with it because pain is the teacher that I have been given. And it was the appropriate teacher for me. And it has taken me places and allowed me to open up to Odin and to understand and connect with him on the tree, his greatest mystery. Without the blessing of Ordeal, I never could have gotten to that point. That imitatio has forged a connection between me and my God that I never could have had otherwise. And I think that that's what people who don't do Ordeal don't see. Odin told me once long ago that you cannot lead someone else across a threshold that you yourself have not crossed. And I've found that for some people who come to me for counseling, knowing that I am an Ordeal master, whatever that means in their mind, whatever images that conjures in their own heart, to them, it means I have walked through terror and darkness and pain. And that translates in their experience into the reality that they can tell me their deepest, darkest shames and the things that are causing them problems spiritually. Because I've gone through this. Maybe I can take them out of their own darkness. Maybe I can show them a way out of that. And they don't have to be afraid that I'm going to look with derision or disgust on the pain that they bring me. Because I know pain, and it doesn't hold any secrets from me. And I didn't understand that for a long time. I was like, well, Odin wants me to do Ordeal, so I'm going to do Ordeal, fine. But then I started having people come to me who needed to come to someone who was not disgusted by the mess that pain so often brings. I'm glad I'm an Ordeal dancer, and I never thought I'd say that. Now, I have heard it said that their Ordeal is not part of Heathenry, and to that I say bullshit. Wake up and read your own lore, people. You want to be lore hounds? Fine. Read your own lore. I belong to Odin. Odin is a god who hung himself on Yggdrasil, on the world tree, for 9 days and 9 nights of agony, who cut himself with his own spear, who tore out an eye for wisdom, for hunting for power, as an Ordeal master would phrase it, who strung himself up between 2 fires, who risked his life betting with giants, who engaged in ergi practices, all in this hunting for power, and that's part of Ordeal too. There are many reasons that one can undergo Ordeal. That's one of them. I would say that Ordeal is not only part of Heathenry, it's integral to some of its mysteries. And I don't like to see it fetishized, and I think that often it is. I think that those that are so threatened by it, who take pains to call it a perversion and endlessly discuss it, are the ones fetishizing it and making more of it than it ever really is. It's one tool amongst many. You know, what is the saying that if all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail? Well, I think what we're seeing in the heathen community is kind of the inverse of that in some way. It's like there's people who are so freaked by the fact that Ordeal exists and that people are using this within the context of heathenry as a means of serving and engaging with their gods, that they're really blowing the whole thing out of proportion. You don't have to do Ordeal to serve Odin. Some people who serve Odin will do Ordeal. You would think that this would be common sense.